Hello, Camp Pros. This is Oliver Gregan. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm the Executive Director of YMCA Camp Winona in DeLeon Springs, Florida.
And my name is Matt Wilfred. My pronouns are also he, him, and I'm the Executive Producer of podcasting at Go Camp Pro, and you are listening to First Class Counselors.
This series is for the camp directors to give to their counselors as they hire and prepare them for the upcoming summer.
Because do you ever really have enough time in staff training? I'm pretty sure that answer is always no. So this is a podcast dedicated to giving camp counselors the skills they need to help a camper's week and day be magical. And this episode is all about bringing that amazing counselor skill and camp magic to every single part of the camp day. And that's why we do what we're doing here on First Class Counselors.
So thank you for tuning in. Here we're going to cover one specific topic and cover the essentials as fast as we can.
It's the need to knows.
They can't go without.
The fundamentals.
The basics. So today we're going to be going through a camp day in a flash. With the Camp Winona camp schedule, we are going to be flying through a camp day and give you a piece of advice for each part. So this is my little way of cheating to get some advice from Matt about what we can do here at Camp Winona to improve every day.
Amazing. Well, I think this episode, Oliver, came from the idea that we can truly inject every single part of the day with intention from the camp counselors. And that doesn't have to just be like the practical tips. We're definitely going to give you those in this episode, but also intentionally camp magic. And sometimes we use camp magic as a little bit of insider language in here. Basically, it's just what makes camp special and makes it memorable for campers. So we're going to do our best to give you both the practical and the magical tip that goes along with each part of the day. And we'll try to do it all in a way that's not going to make this episode 2 hours long. We'll do our best, but it's going to be fast. It's going to be furious and fairly overnight camp focused. But we know that our day camp listeners out there are some of the most creative first classers out there. So we know that you'll take these tips, make them your own, and make it amazing for your campers, no matter what kind of camp you go to.
All right, with that being said, it's time to wake up. It's 7 a.m. here at camp, and we got to start our day. So whether you start with revelry or something, you got to wake up in the morning. So get a cool alarm clock. You know, it can be a vendor's alarm clock. It can be one of the ones that spins and goes crazy all over the floor, and you got to catch it. Find something really cool that goes off in the morning, and then have a different camper who's assigned to each morning, or a pair of campers who are assigned to turn it off and wake everybody up in the cabin. All right. So it's not just your job as the counselor, although it is your job. This is a great way to give some responsibility and have some fun with waking up in the morning.
Amazing. My tip here is also a little bit of a magical one, and that is to wake up with a mystery. Something happens right at the start of the day where maybe it's the counselor goes missing. Everyone's shoes is missing. The clothesline is gone. The door is gone. Check with your director first on that one. But it's something to start the day off with a little bit of intrigue and mystery that you can use and leverage for the rest of the day. So my tips later on are going to call back to this mystery and opportunities to inject that, but it creates a nice little story for the day. It doesn't have to be integrated into a theme if you're not going as big as a theme, but if you want to, this is a great way to add to the magic of a camp theme. So make it super campy with characters and costumes for the young ones, and make it a little more subtle for the older ones. It's pretty amazing that with your teen week campers, they're not going to necessarily buy into the costumes and accents and stuff like that. But if their shoes are missing, or if the door is missing, or a counselor is missing, and they notice it for the first time, they're going to be much more bought into it. So start your wake up with a mystery.
Okay, we're moving to 7:35. It's time for morning mission for us here at Camp Winona. This is a part of our day that we give every camper some form of positive story to start their day, reflecting back on our values of honesty, respect, responsibility, and caring, and some other important values we have, like grit or gratefulness, or in our case as YMCA, some of our Christian values. Our hope is that the story is carried throughout the whole entire day, and that campers can use it can be used to modify campers' behavior, right? A reminder. So one story we tell is about the 4 core values at the dawn of time, but they're people, right? So that way, instead of talking about let's be more caring, we can talk about caring as a person and how we can be either A, more like them, or how would caring handle this situation? And it's a great way for us to do that. But when you enter morning mission, something we do here specifically is we enter with silence. So we have some reverence that we have for that area on camp. So kids know this is a little bit different than the running around and playing of camp all day. So that's our morning mission. your camp and some tricks to make it be more reverent. Matt, what do you have?
If you're a longtime listener of the podcast, you know that I talk about gratitude a lot here. And I think that your morning mission is the perfect opportunity to talk about what you are grateful for, either from the previous day or gratitude for the coming day. And a great way that you can contextualize this is through the Haudenosaunee Thanksgiving address. And if you've never heard of it, I'll put it in the show notes for you to check out. But essentially, the Haudenosaunee community, they created this this prayer, not necessarily a prayer, greeting to the natural world is a better way to put it. And essentially the Thanksgiving address goes through all of the people that we share the earth with and all of the things that we share the earth with. And we talk about how to live in right relations with those, but really it's just a statement of gratitude. And it's a wonderful way to start the day. I officiated a wedding this summer actually, and we started the wedding with the Thanksgiving address. And it was a really beautiful way to give thanks to the earth that we were standing on, and can really raise some great conversations about what it means to love the earth, and does the earth love us back? Really great deep questions to kind of start the day off. And you can kind of leverage the fact that everyone's still a little bit sleepy, so you can talk about some deeper things without the craziness of the camp day impeding on that.
Okay, we're moving on to 7:45. We're at flagpole here at camp, and that means it's time to bring the energy. All right, people, camp flagpole, it's all about waking people up in the morning here at Winona, so get people awake. But if you're maybe one of those people who is not like a big time announcer who really is shouting at the top of their lungs, we have a way to give out a report, and it's called the special reporter. So one camper will run up to the flagpole. You will tell one camper from each cabin, and then they will run back to their cabin to report back. Then you, off to the side while other announcements are being made or songs are being sung, have one camper from each cabin who was not that original camper come and report back to you to make sure the message was clear and sound to the entire cabin. This is a great one for those people, like I said, who are not loud, big singers. Fair warning on this, sometimes it does take a little bit more time, but it does make sure that your report gets out there clearly and understood to all the cabins on camp. So it's a good method at flagpole. Matt, what do you have?
I liked my first camp that I went to didn't do a flagpole. Then the second camp that I went to did a flagpole, and I love the energy and opportunity to get into it. And one of the most fun things that I've seen are called holy motion. And so I went to Christian camps growing up, so holy motion, but really it was just an opportunity to blast a song. And then the counselors or the staff or whoever was on it that day had like a choreographed dance move that you just kind of followed the leader. So if we ever heard Great Big Sea by Ordinary Day and you went to camp in my generation, everyone, if you've heard the song before, you know, it starts off with the telegraph, the but if you hear Ordinary Day with camp people, they're all going to do this. If you're watching on YouTube, they're all going to go on this side, and then you switch sides, and then switch, and then you know it's cast, reel it in. And it's just those, it's fun, really easy, accessible dance moves that people can all do in sync. But if you're a camp that does line dancing or square dancing, what a fun way to start the day with everyone kind of moving in motion. And there's some good metaphor in there of people all working together, starting the camp day in sync and having a blast together. So holy motions is what I would recommend right before we go to breakfast at 8 a.m. Oliver, what is the coolest or most important tip that you would give people for breakfast time at camp?
Oh God, breakfast is my time to eat. So I love eating. That means that we have to stay seated at our table. This is a really big rule at camp. It's make sure one, maybe two campers at a time are up from the table. Following this rule is one of the biggest runs for me in the dining hall, because once kids start standing up, it can get really disorganized really quickly. Not only that, but counselors who are able to keep their kids seated for the entirety of the meal makes it a lot easier when it's time to clean up, make it a lot easier when it's time to dismiss. Campers just aren't going on their own. And that way you're not losing any campers during a meal where it should be pretty easy. Everyone sits at the one spot. So you get an orderly dining hall in quotations, because dining halls at camp can get a little disorderly, but we have some hidden order in there you have to help follow. And this is a great trick to make sure that happens. 1 to 2 campers up to your table at a time makes it easier. Matt, what are you doing at breakfast?
Well, breakfast for me, for sure, eating is important. Now, I don't usually eat breakfast. That's just on what I try and do with intermittent fasting. But what I think is really great about it is that the dining hall is a little bit more quiet at breakfast than it is at lunch or dinner. So it's a great opportunity as people are shaking the sleep out of their eyes is to do those dice breaker questions. And I know that I've talked about this one several times on a podcast, but it was one of my favorite things that I did as a counselor. Get a piece of paper, numbers 1 to 6 on it. Kids literally roll the dice and answer the question, or get to ask that question to someone else at the table. You can do it 1 to 12 and roll 2 dice. And it's a nice opportunity for them just to ask questions, and it's done in a structured way, right? So that you don't have to come up with these like would you rather questions or things that require any creative thinking before you've had your coffee or people have had time to wake up yet. So it's a nice little conversation thing that's kind of low barrier to entry, if you will, for a tired table at breakfast.
All right. So after breakfast here at camp, we head out to swim, where it's a little different in Florida. We have storms that come in the afternoon. So I know a lot of camps swim in the afternoon to get out of the sun. We're swimming in the morning to get out of the lightning storm. So we're going to swim first thing in the morning. And I do advise you get in the water, sit on the beach, stay clocked in. There's nothing more disappointing than walking down to the waterfront and seeing a counselor who's clocked out, where they could be playing with their kids in the water. And just as an added bonus, here's my one little tip: bring some balloons down to the waterfront and then have your campers try to get them to sit on the bottom of the lake. It's really challenging. They have to problem solve, and it's just a lot of fun to do. So grab some balloons, fill them up with air, and see if your campers can get them to the ground in the lake. Who can get it the deepest and to stay there is a good challenge too. Matt, what do you have?
I love that. I'm gonna be that guy, Oliver, and say that get a $1 ball from the dollar store rather than balloons, which are terrible for the earth and should never be used ever again. But that's just me being a curmudgeon. You make sure it's reusable, the thing that you're using. But in terms of the camp magic side of things, also. I love sitting on a ball at the bottom of the lake. Is hilarious. I've never done it. I've done it myself. I did it in pools all the time as a kid, but I never thought of doing it at camp. So that's brilliant, Oliver. My go-to, we're talking about young swim at this point for Camp Winona. And with the younger ones, my go-to thing was to grab a boogie board or one of those water mats that's maybe like 3 feet by 3 feet. And you get kids to climb on top of it and you give them submarine rides or like dolphin rides with it, where they're on top of it and you're holding it. I've never had a kid not giggle their butts off because I'm like shaking it when they're going through rough water, or I say, do you want to go underwater? And they take a deep breath and you plunge them underwater just for a second and you kind of move them around like that. It's a classic and kids will absolutely love it. So give that one a try after you've tried to sit on a ball underneath the water.
Hey, if you're not in Young Swim, that means you're probably doing your first activity of the day. So what's happening here is everyone kind of gets to go into their choice activities, and you're probably instructing a program as a counselor. So what I say is plan for setup, the directions, and clean up in your lesson plans, right? We do have a whole episode about programming, but really what my advice here is practice saying the directions of your activity or the rules of your game. Just saying them out loud over and over again in your head, whatever it might be, and it allows you to prepare to do a presentation. For example, myself right now, if I go out to high ropes, I may not have run high ropes in 5 years. I ran it this weekend though, so I've run it sooner than that. But if you're out there, it becomes natural for you. You can start making jokes and having fun with it. So now when I do my instructions for putting on your harness or what the safety rules are, how you wear a helmet, it's filled with jokes and laughter, but also gets all the core things down in an organized fashion. And that comes from the fact that I've been teaching kids how to put a harness on for 10 years, but it's that practice, repetition. And even if it's your first summer, you can start to get down some of those lesson plans that you know you're going to do on a regular basis. Like you're welcome to soccer clinic, or you're welcome to arts and crafts, especially that first day. So you can really set the parameters. The more fun you can make it, but also informative, lets kids know that they're going to have a really great time, but they have an order that they're going to have while they're there. And that's really important. So practice how you open and explain what you're talking about at your activity.
That's brilliant. That's great. I will encourage you to try something a little bit different. Maybe this comes after you've had some programming experience, but maybe you have something that will fit perfectly in this category. And I want to challenge you that in your activity times, as you look at your entire week, try to run an activity that's going to take multiple sessions to complete. So maybe that's something like you're building a super fort. That's obviously going to take time because you got to lash the sticks together because you're making a 2-tier fort. Again, check with your director about some things like that. But I mean, a 2-tier fort is pretty sweet. Maybe you're making a new sleep out spot at the camp and you're getting the rocks for a fire pit and you're clearing the brush away because you want your own special sleep out spot for people to enjoy. Maybe it's a camp newspaper or a camp podcast, or maybe you're teaching ukulele lessons or guitar lessons, something that takes more than one chance. The benefit of that is no matter how you run your programming, but a lot of camps are moving to the style where campers you don't have to move around with your cabin. So it's an opportunity for kids from different cabins to come together and stay together over the course of the week. And they're usually building a skill or doing something that they can take away from camp and have a little bit of pride about, whether that's the skill of learning how to play a ukulele or saying, hey, we made a new trail or we made a new sleep out spot for camp. There's something that you can only accomplish when you go outside of the 1 hour at a time framework. So it takes a little bit of scheduling coordination, but just make sure you've talked to whoever runs your program. Some camps call it a program director, program manager, program coordinator, whatever it is. It usually involves the word program in some way. And they're the person that will be able to help you out with making that a reality, because those, in my experience, seeing those, I worked at a camp that did those every single week. That was just the expectation that a second year counselor came with a long session, a choose your own adventure, I think we called it. And those choose your own adventures were the most popular and the ones that kids always look back on because they had built sustainable friendships and connections and done something really cool with that amount of time.
With that, we're going to transition over to transitions, where I'm going to talk a little bit more about the self-care aspect. This is the time to use the bathroom, wash your hands, refill your water bottle, put on sunblock because we're down here in Florida. 10:15, reapply. That's usually the time. So make sure you're doing those things about self-care, doing it with your campers, and really saying that this transition time is self-care time. It's teaching kids to take care of themselves by showing them you taking care of yourself. So make sure you do that and have fun doing it. So maybe everyone spreads their arms out in a giant T position and they get sprayed down with their sunblock. Maybe they finish what's in their water bottle before they refill it. Maybe it is everyone singing while they wash their hands, right? These are all different ways that we can make sure that we're having fun, but also promoting the self-care that's so important at camp. So transition with self-care.
Cool. The transitions at the camps that I've worked at sometimes have been a little bit longer, and we intentionally made them longer because we found that some sessions did really well using the whole hour long that sessions were. And then some sessions, 45 minutes, it was when it was slowly petering off of being super fun, and we really wanted to value the end it while it's fun mentality and not make things draw on for more than they have to. And so our transition time always involved kids being able to go to the core area, and there was just stuff to do there. The gagaball pit was there. There were always other lawn games out. There was a craft that was going on, and kids could just go and start doing those things, and then you knew where they were. They also went to the bathroom and those kinds of things during that time. So one of the things, kids would always rush to the gagaball court because it's gagaball, of course. And we could do, Oliver, we should do a whole episode on gagaball, on different ways to make gagaball super cool and talk about competitiveness. Anyway, this little modification, Michael Brandwein talks about subverting expectations, just taking a thing they know and love and just turning it on their head a little bit. So instead of Gagaball, try to start a game of Team Gagaball. And Team Gagaball, just by literally throwing some pennies on half of the kids or doing sock bandanas or whatever, a way to differentiate the two teams, hats and no hats, I don't know. It changed it up just enough to make the game a little bit more complicated and strategic. You can make it even more challenging by you could take away the no double hit rule as long as it goes between one teammate to the other. So red team can hit between red teams as many times as possible. And then it's really strategic and hardcore. And then the winner is the person with the last last person standing. So just that little tweak to Gag-A-Ball is a cool way that I have seen it go from just a one transition time activity to like the kids. We had to schedule it in for a whole session because the kids wanted to do a super team tournament, and they made like 7 teams. It got way bigger than I ever expected it to, but it was super fun. So just switching up the regularity, and then they don't get bored of Gag-A-Ball because you've changed it for them.
Oh yeah, Gaga is too popular for you to not highlight it maybe in an episode. I love also that you call it Gaga Ball and I call it Gaga Ball. Just a little difference between the two countries.
Yeah, I've heard Canadians call it Gaga Ball as well, but we always called it Gaga Ball. It's a very it's a very Boston way of saying it, eh?
Maybe a little bit. I don't know. We say Gaga.
I'm not going to do my Boston accent on the podcast. It would offend too many people.
You're pretty close to my home turf up there. All right. But we're going to transition away from transitions now and talk about old swim. So for me, I'm going to go into a little bit more of a serious one, but I said, check in with your campers before swim, make sure that they're ready for swim. Older campers, especially those who are 13 plus, around that age of puberty, might have something tough going on. They might be dealing with some insecurities. You don't need to address them. You don't need to be like, oh, is it that? Okay. But you can also be understanding of the fact that they don't want to swim and be there to kind of say, all right, here's another option that might be, just as fun as swim that we can do at the waterfront area. I've seen my 13-year-olds or older build giant sand castles. Sometimes we just play volleyball instead. Sometimes we just want to sit there and read a book. But I think giant sandcastle building is a great one. You could do it with buckets, but also like trash cans, right? Like one trash can can make a giant tower. And if all of a sudden you have 4 trash can towers and then you have like a surrounding wall, you can start making a super cool giant stand inside sandcastle down at your waterfront. The one thing I do say as the camp director is if you make a hole, fill it back in. You don't want anybody twisting an ankle down at the waterfront because of a giant like ditch that some campers dug. So it's temporary. Sandcastles are temporary. So it's up to you to end it. But make sure you take a good picture first, because as the camp director, again, I'll say that's great for social media. So,
what a camp director infusion of that. Cover up your holes like that. That we're getting old when that is the something we say with this super cool magical make a fort thing. But you're absolutely right, because you have to deal with the paperwork as the camp director. That's what I always said. I was like, I only do this because I hate doing paperwork, but I will do it.
Yeah,
I hate doing it.
We're in the pivotal part of off season now, where I get to talk to insurance companies and such. So right. Yeah, that's where my brain is now. I'm like,
no, insurance companies. Insurance companies, we fill in the holes on the beach. Please take our insurance rate down.
Yeah. Please don't get me a.
Amazing. Okay, I'll give you one of my favorite things to do down at the water, especially with older kids who have a little bit more hand-eye coordination. It's a game that my best friend and I made up when we were swimming at a provincial park, and the waves were really coming in. So it was a super wavy day, and we invented this game called Wave Ball. And Wave Ball is essentially you take any ball that has that you can skip off the water. Essentially, if you throw it hard enough, it'll bounce off the water. It's gotta be pretty small, like the size of a small dodgeball or like a mini basketball. They're kind of perfect for this. And the whole aim of the game is that you want the ball to skip off the water. You're standing maybe like 20 feet, I think, about from your, maybe less than that. Yeah, 20 feet sounds right. From your partner. It has to bounce off the water, and they have to touch it, and the ball has to still go behind them. So they have to like miss it, but not miss it by too much. And if they touch it and it goes by them, I get a point. And if it was a reasonable one, but they missed it, I still get a point. But if it was out of their arm's reach, it's no point. But if they catch it, then it's 1 point for them. And it's just like a dumb game that we made up one day. But my friend and I still will play it every time we're even in a pool without waves. But the waves also make it really fun, right? Because the ball goes everywhere. Maybe start with a softer ball until you've become a pro wave baller, or else it's going to be wave ball plus bloody nose. But wave ball is still a very fun game.
All right. Going into young activity 1, we're having the little kids here for an activity while the older kids are swimming. So we're going to watch some YouTube videos and watch what you're about to teach. If you're leading an activity, sometimes something as simple as looking up the history of archery will give you something cool to talk about with kids with some archery facts and whatever it might be. There's so many resources out there. This one is really just telling you, hey, look up something online. Even if it's something you know well, that refresher of information is great. One of my staff members who's working here with us now, she just bought a $400 biology textbook because she was a biology major in college, and she got it for $3 at Goodwill. So place to look. If she doesn't resell it, I would be flabbergasted. But she still was walking through we were walking back to the car in the parking lot. She was excited to get to go back and look at information that she already knew, but wanted that refresher. So YouTube can do that for free, but sometimes you do get to find a $400 textbook for $2 at Goodwill that can bring back some old memories and some old knowledge. So don't stop yourself from going and learning about something that you're teaching, going out of your way, that little bit extra, and it will make a huge difference. It makes your life easier because now when you don't know what to do, you can start spitting archery facts, right? This is great. So
Amazing.
That's my advice.
For me, with younger activities, I've said this before, so forgive me for repeating myself, but it is all about characters and costumes. One of the best things that you can do is you can turn any session into this magical world with a story, with a mystery, something to be solved by doing the thing. Even archery, you can welcome in the young knights or the young squires or the young protectors of the castle or protectors of the realm to hone their skills. And if the session is run by somebody in some pseudo medieval costume, especially the young ones, they're really going to buy into that, and it's going to help make that session memorable and engaging for them. And it gives kids with different ways that they buy into a session a chance to do it, because archery or nature exploration, there's a certain kid that's going to appeal to. But if you add the drama and the magic to it, then you've unlocked for all of those creative kids that have big imaginations, you've made the session therefore accessible to them. So characters, costumes, and I've said this before, and I will definitely say it again. If you are going to be in character, then you need to be 100% in character all the time. If I ever come to your camp and I see you take your wig off in front of the campers that you're doing the program with, then I will very kindly and very intentionally give you a shove. Just a small one, but one that'd be like, come on. We got to be, if we're going to be in character, you got to be in character. You can't kill the magic by taking your wig off in front of kids. So characters, costumes, don't kill the magic, please.
All right. But now I'm getting hungry again at camp. We've wasted so much energy. We're going to lunch. So we go straight into lunch, and my advice is eat last. Okay. Make sure every single kid at your table gets their food on their plates and that they are eating before you start serving yourself. Don't try to skip the line. Don't try to rush to get your food first, whatever it might be. If your camp does like a competition or something to be the first table, go ahead, go all out, try and get that space. But when you are at your table with your kids, they eat first. There might be a few exceptions, like if you have to run to program or something like that, or you have somewhere you have to be, then you can maybe take your phone, or not your phone, but take your food and get going so that you can get to where you need to be in time. But explain that to your kids. Be like, hey, I want to make sure all you eat. I have to head out to my program, or I have to head out to this activity, or I have to go set this up. So I'm going to take this food on the run with me, or I'm going to eat quickly and get out of here. So they understand that you're not just eating because you're hungrier than them, or you're better than them, or because you're the person in charge, you get your food first. Know that they come first at camp, and that's a simple way to show it.
Very important advice. Thank you, Oliver. My thing here, this is your opportunity to continue the mystery that you set up in the morning. And one of my favorite ways that I've ever done this is, we at my camp, we ate in our cabins all the time. So if you don't do that, you'll have to kind of plan ahead and say, hey, we're going to give your campers heads up. Hey, we're going to eat together at lunch, or use that as part of the mystery that says, I heard there's going to be something waiting for us at lunch. We need to make sure we're there to hear Agent X's clue for the day. And one of the things at our spy camp that we did at one time was that we taught the kids about ciphers and how to use a cipher to decode a clue. And one of the ciphers that I made was the position of the plates and the utensils on the plate. So we took if there was a blue plate, it was letters A through halfway through the alphabet, and if it was a yellow plate, it was this through this of the alphabet, and Y and Z were this kind of thing. And then it was the clock symbols. If the knife was facing 12 o'clock, that was letter A. And so around the table, it spelled out a word. And while we were waiting to go up in line for lunch or for food to come, the kids got to decode the way the table was set. So that's just a fun way that you can continue it. And it can just be as simple as leaving them a clue on the table. But just remember, it's an opportunity to inject a little bit of camp magic into that part of the day.
Yeah. Even if you're a leadership staff member, right? Like come up with some like one code or decode for all the tables, have like a picture of it printed on a piece of paper. And then before lunch, set everyone's table before they come in, and then see whatever table can figure out the code first. And then they get to be the first table to go up and get food if it's buffet style or family style or whatever. And it's just a fun way to put that in for everybody for that one meal. And the code could be something like, could be something like, say thank you to the kitchen staff for a delicious lunch. Add it all together.
Yeah, cool. I like that.
All right. But we're wrapping up lunch. And for us here at Camp Winona, it's time to go to Siesta. So normal Siesta is going to the cabin, having a little bit of rest. But I also say to all my staff, there's nothing like doing siesta on the road. So go and find a nice tree and relax there, or along a stream, or a nice spot by the lake. Make sure your campers know that this is coming up. Usually if you surprise them, they're really excited sometimes to go back to the cabin and just relax on their bed. So if they know that Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday is going to be travel siesta, then they can prepare for it and be ready for it. I'm not trying to get rid of the mystery of camp there. Just for those few kids who are really intentional about getting that little bit of rest time. Maybe you tell them before, and the mystery is for the other kids. But I think going on the road for siesta and connecting with nature a little bit, being outside, is a great way to spend that hour or so that you get there for siesta time.
That's great. And we've talked a lot on this in the last couple of episodes. I know we've mentioned it a bunch, is about, how routines are really important for kids. And so I appreciate, Oliver, that you mentioned there to give a heads up to a kid who is looking forward to that, especially if they're seeming like they're dragging their butts a little bit because they're tired, making sure you're being sensitive to that as well. My tip that always got me through rest hour, because I'm a big believer that siesta, or some people call it heads on bunk or feet on bunk, or whatever it is, whatever that time is that it's time for rest. We need that time midday. And as a counselor, you also need that time to do, you're not having a nap necessarily, unless you've got a co-counselor, and that's okay. But you need to recharge as well. And sometimes that's just kind of chilling out and you reading a book yourself. But it's important that you, in your, whether it's a rainy day bin or your bag, something you bring along, is that you bring activities for them, for kids who want to not sleep, want to do something quiet, because some kids are going to sleep during that time, and some kids might want to do a silent solo activity, is what I call them. So maybe that's a puzzle, maybe reading a book, a comic book, a word search, pen and paper for writing a letter, anything like that that's going to keep them occupied for that time, and therefore quiet for that time. So we really use that opportunity to talk about the importance of rest, and also the importance of respecting other people's decisions during that time. And this is the only time besides going to bed at camp that we're going to ask you to do something on your own. So let's take advantage of that, is kind of how I framed it with campers when I was a counselor.
Sometimes around the same time of our siesta, we also have mail calls. So that's where all the mail comes in. So my advice is write letters to other campers or other cabins, InterCamp Mail. That way, kids who may not be getting something from home can get something from a kid who might be just across the way from them. And it's something like, hey, I had a lot of fun in soccer. Can't wait to see you again at soccer the next day. Right? Someday, or maybe it's a secret message they get to pass each other. Like, my cabin is going to go on a creek walk tomorrow, and we were wondering if your cabin wanted to join us, right? Inter-cabin mail or InterCamp Mail is a great way to get campers to socialize on camp, and just another way, and have them learn that. Sometimes you can see those become pen pals outside of camp as well, so they stay connected. It's great.
I forgot it was me. I was like, what's the plan, Oliver? What are we doing here? Idiot.
Like,
Idiot.
go.
Yeah. Okay.
Where are we at for time?
We're at 30. We're at like 33 minutes. So I think that we would. This seems like a good time to call it. Like it's after rest hour.
Okay.
So do you want to still just keep going and then do it at the end? Just keep flowing. Or what do you want to do?
Do you want to do the E.G.E.L portion now and then you have one cut?
Yeah, sure. Why don't you say like, so it turned just something funny. Like, so it turns out that we were once again too ambitious with our time and we're getting on and we still have a whole nother half of the day to go. So we're going to break this up into a 2-parter and we'll see you in 2 episodes. But before we go, we'll do our E.G.E.L, blah, blah, blah. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. I think I have a good transition for us. Sorry about that.
Love it. So I'm going to go in a bit of an opposite direction with this one. It's not so much a magical tip because I think writing mail is important and the intention of making sure that every camper, has an opportunity to get something is brilliant. I will say this, not that you necessarily as a counselor are going to have control over it, but this is just me getting to air my pet peeves out loud, is that I really think that we should just stop the practice of making kids do stuff when they get their mail, or even making counselors do stuff to get their mail. I don't know why that tradition really exists. And if you can kind of, if you think about the purpose behind it, I can't think of any other purpose other than like putting somebody on the spot at the to get a laugh out of everyone as at expense to that person. Like, are we saying it's bad to get love from somebody? Is it's bad that somebody cares about you enough to write a letter? No, if anything, I mean, that should be celebrated, but we don't have to put somebody on the spot just because they got a piece of mail. We can put somebody on the spot for reasons that they did something awesome. And we can ask them first if it's okay if we put them on the spot, because I think it's one of those weird, like non-consensual, or even if there is consent, it kind of feels like peer pressured consent to stand up on your chair and sing a song or do something embarrassing just because you got a piece of mail. I don't know. Maybe we'll get some angry emails about that. Be like, yeah, Matt, camp's about having fun. It's just fun. And I'm like, well, yeah, fun for who though? So fight me on it. I don't know. Who knows? But that's my big thing about mail for you to think about.
Yeah, I find I agree with you, Matt. Like, I just don't like being put on the spot like that for just accepting like my letter. I'm excited to have it. If I was a camper, I'm excited to see something that maybe my mom or my dad or a family member has written to me. And then to know like that somebody is sending me that out of passion, but then everybody else is going to make fun of me for receiving it, or not make fun of me, but maybe put me on the spot and in an awkward situation. It's slightly discomforting. So I think if 2 of us are having that opinion, and you might be somebody who is like, all right, Matt, I'll fight you, get the boxing ring, then maybe just sit down and think a little bit about what that idea is. Because I think it is important that if somebody expresses love, someone should not be ridiculed for that. And that's really where it comes from for me. But with that being said, that's mail time kind of happens at Siesta, and Siesta is the best time of the day to take a rest. So Matt and I are going to take a rest with going through the schedule today. We'll come back for a second episode and talk to you about the rest of the day that we have here at Camp Winona and all the other hints that come with it. But with that being said, we're going to cut from today and we're going to go into our E.G.E.L. So that is our ever-growing, ever-learning little bit of information for you to get for the day to make you a little bit better. So Matt, what are you teaching us today with our E.G.E.L time?
For sure. I will give you a little hint, a little nature hint for my time in the outdoors that I teach kids, and those are deer ears and owl eyes. And I might have done this one thinking about it twice. We're 4 seasons in our show notes. Listeners, you didn't hear me doing this, but I totally said to Oliver, I said, you did your E.G.E.L. And then I started doing one that I think I did. But anyway, deer ears are basically where you take your hands and you cup them a little bit and you tuck them behind your ears. And as you are listening to someone, if you tuck them and then make sure they're facing facing forward still, it kind of amplifies the sounds in that direction. And they're meant to imitate deer ears, how they can kind of rotate their ears on their head to listen in different directions. And if you do that, it's amazing how well you can hear somebody. And that I do that all the time with people wearing masks, because I have a hard time hearing people. And I didn't realize how much I relied on lip reading until people put masks on. And then I was like, oh man, I need to listen. So I teach kids that if I'm putting my hands to my ears, it's not that I want you to be louder. It's just that I want to hear you better. So that's why I'm doing that. And it's kind of fun to hear kids, you can teach them about how to locate a bird sound by using deer ears and rotating their body with it. And owl eyes is essentially, I'll just put it in the show notes. It's too long to explain. So deer ears and owl eyes, check the show notes for a kind of a visual on each of those things.
All right. Well, I was going to advise everyone to make sure they have a shower caddy. They're not just for campers, they're for counselors too. But Matt says that I've said that one already. But just in case, there's a reminder: use a shower caddy. For my actual advice, or my E.G.E.L, is I'm going to advise one of these guys. It's just a carabiner. That's all it is. And these are all my camp keys, as you can see, that keep us. And then I have a tile, which I guess could count as another thing. If I lose my keys, I can always find them because it makes noises for me somehow. I can't, well, maybe it doesn't anymore, but it does if my phone sets it off. So I don't lose my keys for camp. Or if, say that someone wants to take them, maybe a keen camper, I can't find my keys. So there's some advice I have on, keeping my camp keys close by me or findable at all times. And I will admit though, if your camp has very little internet or service, the tiles struggle a little bit. So just know that if you're going into it. But they can still do the beep, beep, beep thing if you get close enough with radio waves or whatever. So if you're walking around your phone because you kind of know where it is, you can press the little beep, beep, beep thing and find them. So there's my ask for tile to sponsor camp directors everywhere.
Oliver, I would put that on my water bottle. I feel like I always lost my water bottle at camp, and I kind of, tiles weren't, well, I don't know. I never got a tile, but my camp water bottle, it got to the point where campers would walk up and give it to me. And this case, you left your water bottle here, because they just knew that if there was a lone water bottle, it was likely mine, because I was terrible at leaving it everywhere. So a tile might have saved me there.
They need to make them so I can put it on my clipboard with my schedule and everything on it for the camp day. Cause that's really what I lose all the time. Is my camp schedule and my clipboard. My clipboard is a giant clipboard, which maybe I'll use that for an E.G.E.L for a different day. But with that being said, I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, we'd be so grateful if you left us a review wherever you're listening to this podcast. Your ratings and reviews not only tell us what you like and don't like about the show, but it helps boost our rankings and help more people discover the great stuff that we do here on the show. Matt, you want to finish us off?
Absolutely. I'll say this too. If you don't like the podcast, or if you like the podcast, either way, let us know, please. It's been a hot minute since we've gotten a listener email. And I know that there's 2 people that have sent us emails that we're still waiting to get you on as a guest. We're going to do it, I promise. But I would say, please reach out if you have an idea for the show. If you want to be a guest on the show, if you have a tip or something you really want to share, we would love to have you. So our emails are always in the show notes, so you can just find them there. But if you are waiting to be on the show, or you want to find out find more amazing camp podcasts, you can check out all of the other shows in the Go Camp Pro podcast network at gocamp.pro/first-class-counselors. And there's lots of great stuff there for you to check out and get going on until you can be an illustrious guest on First Class Counselors.
All right. With that being said, thanks for listening, friends. And remember, camp is camp and camp is all good.